Hi everyone, and thank you for joining one of our webinars again. Today we'll be chatting about compliance management mastery, and we'll uncover on how of our customers are currently using DocuWare to help them managing their actual policy documents and compliance policy documents in their organization. As a start, you can see both myself and Bobby on the screen. We will be presenting this webinar for you today. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. You can see on the right hand side of the screen is an image of the GoToWebinar panel, as you can see it in front of you. And there at the bottom right, you see there's an area for questions. Please do not hesitate to ask questions as much as you like. We will answer those questions after the webinar, and we can even jump back into the demo to answer some of the questions that you might have. That being covered, I'm going to hand over to Bob to chat us through some of the challenges that we currently see at our customers. And these are the challenges that we will be discussing today during the webinar. Bob, over to you.
Yeah, hi everybody. So challenges and bottlenecks. The big issue with quality management in regards to how documents and SOPs, etc., are moved through the business for the quality standards. So a lot of our customers have all turned around and told us the same things. It's about managing those documents, specifically if it is a manual process, the compliance risk for auditability, and obviously risk management. And the implications of that can be quite severe for organizations. There are monetary penalties in regards to some regulatory requirements that people need to adhere to. There is obviously the control and management of those documents with errors, delays, and the impacts on operational efficiency, all leading to various areas where the business can have problems, including risk management, because there are major issues people can have mitigating risk without having quality documented procedures and policies in place to control that.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, so those are some of the main challenges that we've seen with our customers, right? But ultimately, every time that we've got, especially companies that are ISO companies, that's got to be ISO certified, you need those policy documents in place in your organization. So ultimately, although there could be monetary risks, although it can mean that you can lose your ISO compliance, ultimately we need a system to help us to manage this content so that it's very easy to audit, so that we can when our ISO audit comes up once a year, so that we simply have all of the information together and that we can prove to the regulators that we are actually managing our environment in a way that they expect. So briefly, before I go into the demonstration, I'll touch some of the functional areas of DocuWare that you can expect to see today. We're going to be showing you how we index content automatically. How do we manage the indexes of the information, like the file numbers and the information within the file, so that users don't have to manually manage this, that we very often see even in an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to take a look at how we can link documents together, how relevant documents are automatically linked so that I don't have to struggle to find them. This could be previous versions of documents, or even potentially processes that I've put in place within the organization that speaks to the policy document, like, for example, a compliance questionnaire that is filled in or a risk assessment that is done on a weekly basis. Obviously, all of the documents will be secure and organized effectively. We can look at notifications and escalations within the system. How do we manage those so that, once again, we don't have to manually manage the process? How do we assign tasks to people and notify people when there's certain actions that they need to complete? How can we access and collaborate on the content together? And how can we use the forms functionality within DocuWare to give us much more control over the environment? At the bottom of the slide, you can see a high-level overview of what DocuWare is capable of doing. And I want to touch on that very briefly before I go into the demonstration, so that you have more of a conceptual idea of what you're going to see today. On the left-hand side, we've got content capture and ingestion. And this is the area where DocuWare analyzes information that it receives, and depending on the content, index that information in an effective way. And as you can see, we are very flexible in accepting information from everywhere. Today, we're primarily going to take a look at policy documents. So these are generally documents that we already have, that we're working on, or it's new templates that we want to create. So those will be focused on primarily Office documents, like a Word template that I'm filling in or something like that. But of course, DocuWare have the ability to automatically index emails, automatically index scan documents, and even classifies those and extract information from them, although we will not touch on all of those functions in today's webinar. After DocuWare has indexed the information, our workflow engine can intelligently make decisions based on the data available. I could even query old policies or potentially a third-party system, or even an Excel spreadsheet that you use today to reference information to give me rich information that I can work on. Things like file numbers are automatically created and templates created for me so that it saves me time in managing that content and managing what I have and what is currently valid. Finally, on content viewing and decision making, I can display the data to the users in the way that you expect. Potentially, you want to display these policy documents or related information on your current customer portal, or you might just want to search for it. But ultimately, I want an area where it is easy for people to access that information, and very importantly, that I have a full audit trail available about who accessed information, who approved that information, and who has worked on it. Okay, so that being discussed, once again, let those questions flow. If there's anything that I've mentioned here that you find interesting or that you want more information on, and I am now going to jump straight over to a live demonstration. Okay, so on the screen in front of you, you can see the DocuWare web client, right? It's very clean, it's very simple, and it's easy to navigate for the users. I just have these 6 main function buttons on top. I won't even use all of them today. That will notify me and help me to engage with my documents. Should it be that I need to have a simple or elaborate search dialog to search for the documents that even allow me to search for certain words on the page? Or it could be that I want to view a list of all of my policy documents, for example, that's currently in validation, or those that's awaiting consultation, or show me a list of all of my users that has not accepted my policy documents, or even show me a list of all of my users that have not completed my monthly compliance checklist or education section, depending on the industry that I'm in and the kind of requirements that is expected of me from the regulator. So the lists are just like a live reporting so that I, as management or as the document controller within the environment, can have a quick overview of what is the current situation of the documents in my area. Of course, tasks I'm going to touch on quite a bit when I run through the live demo. And then we also have folders. And these folders are quite unique in the way that they automatically and dynamically populate. So I can, for example, click through to take a look at certain policies in certain classifications or services within my environment. Of course, much quicker to search for something through a search dialog, but the folder structures are available for those users that is more comfortable with using them. On the right-hand side, I've got my document viewer with a whole bunch of standard tools, and I'll touch on them in just a moment when I start opening some documents. Now, I'm going to take an example from the first step where I want to create a policy document. I do not have a policy currently for this document type or for this policy, and I want to create a new one. And for this, I'm going to use our forms. And our forms really have an incredibly broad use case. Our customers use them to enforce their policy documents, or their policy procedures rather than documents. What do I have to do on a daily basis in my manufacturing environment? What do I have to do on a weekly basis in my compliance environment or my training center? Is there certain compliance checklists that people need to complete, even if it is something as mundane as reporting that I've cleaned a certain area of the office or that I've done a safety check on my equipment in my manufacturing floor? So these forms could be incredibly broad and could include things like, for example, this customer feedback form that I have, or even a safety checklist on a piece of equipment. And DocuWare can notify me through the workflow to complete these. But for today, we're going to focus on the policy documents themselves. So I'm going to open up this form, which is a new quality document. And this is literally just a form to notify DocuWare that I want to work on a new policy document. Of course, the fields in here, the data that is available in here is completely customizable. I'm going to give it a name, and the name, let's call that QMS document 1. I've already used one, so I'll just use QMS document. I've got a category here. So I'm going to select the quality safety environment as category. Of course, within your environment, you could have multiple categories, right? Multiple categories where your policy documents could be in. And I'm going to select the service, which of course you could also have multiple services within your environment that that the document could form part of. And also potentially within your organizations, you need to manage multiple languages for these documents. And I'm going to complete an English language document now. I also have a template selection, and here I can select certain templates that I have for my policy documents. And this is generally the front page of my policy documents. That's my header information. Potentially I have different departments or areas within my business that uses different templates, but I'm going to use this document example that I have, and I'm simply going to click on submit. DocuWare is going to take the information available. The workflow is going to grab the required documents for me and start collating the information for me. So if I go back to DocuWare, I can see that my lists have updated. Always when it's red, it means there's new information in the lists. So if I click on lists, I can see I've got number of lists. My document waiting validation and my all documents have also increased. So documents waiting for validation is of course not this document. There's various documents still in my environment waiting for validation. And I can see that all of the documents pertinent to me alone is also visible within this list. And there is this new document. And I can see it's a Word document. It hasn't been published as a PDF as a final policy document yet. If I go to my tasks, to my own tasks, I can see that I've got a writing workflow. I also have revision workflows and validation workflows for me, but currently I'm sitting within the writing workflow. Once again, just an example. If your flow of information in your organization is slightly different, DocuWare is easily adjusted because it is a content management system that can work across any type of process. So I'm going to open up my writing workflow. Of course, I could have already displayed significantly more information within this list. I could have either a reminder date and a due date to remind people that there's something that they need to action. And I have got a little bit of options here at the bottom, also fully customizable. If I want to send this to somebody else, potentially I can easily add a button there. And you can see that the document numbers and things like that is not being completed on my document template yet. And of course, the template could also be your own template. This is just an example. So I'm going to select a checker in this case, somebody that is going to check the document. And I'm going to select the approver in this case. But of course, I'm still in the writing portion. So in here, I can now edit the document, either in seeing that it's a Word document in Word on my computer, or I can also edit it in Office Online. The nice thing about editing this document in Office Online, obviously writing my policy document, putting all of the information in the policy that I need, can be done simultaneously through Office for the web. So I can edit this document and run automated version control within DocuWare so that users don't have to constantly worry about who's made changes to the document. And of course, within DocuWare, I can also revert to previous versions. What's nice, when I close it, it automatically saves and updates my template. Let's assume now that I'm finished with the writing of the policy. I now want to go to the next step where Elizabeth, in this case, have to be the checker. Now, of course, I can also enforce certain checkers. The workflow can force somebody specific to be the checker, or I can do a simple selection. And at this case, I can also change my mind. I also have to apply readers, and this is generally a group of people. So it's either people within the quality department, or maybe it is a policy that is only specific to the sales department or to the manufacturing department or warehouse department. And I can select who is going to be the readers and has to accept this policy document within my environment, so that I can prove to the auditors that everybody that needs to have viewed and accepted this policy has actually done so. I'm simply going to click on confirm. As a moderator of this environment or as a document controller of this environment, I can monitor the tasks within the environment. And you can see there's numerous tasks currently going on. I can see that in the validation workflow, there's a number of ones. Here's the QMS document that I'm currently busy with. I can see that the checker is Elizabeth and is Peter, and I can see that there's some other validation workflows also currently running in the environment. I can also see in the revision workflow, which is a policy document that is being revised, not written from the beginning, that there's currently one assigned, and it is assigned to me. And I can see that in the broadcast workflow, there's still many people that have not read and accepted policy documents. But of course, I'll get back to that in just a moment. So I can see that my document is currently sitting with Elizabeth cache. I'm now going to open up a second browser. And in this browser, I am logged in as Elizabeth cache into the DocuWare environment. I can see that she's got lots of broadcast workflows where she's got to accept policy documents, like, for example, this one that was already completed and that she has to confirm. But I am now interested in this one where I have a red tag. Elizabeth could also have received an email notification with a link to this document to notify that she's got to validate this document. She can go obviously into the document, and here she can also have multiple options. I have checked it, or I'm going to send it back to somebody, or I wanted to send it to somebody else as potentially a button that we could add. In this case, I'm going to say that I've checked it, and I'm going to confirm it, and I'm going to send it to Peter King. Now, Peter King is the person that is now going to approve this final version of this document. Once again, I am going to log into the browser as Peter King. You can see he just received the task. Once again, could also have been an email notification. Of course, he can go search for the document. When he opens it up, you could have multiple options. In my case, I've once again said, send it back to the writer or approve this document. And as you can see that the template is constantly updated for me with the information relevant. When has it been validated? When has it been accepted? So depending on what you need on your template, DocuWare can automatically compile this information for you. And of course, document numbers can be adjusted to follow the structure within your own organization. Peter is simply going to go on approve. He's going to confirm it, and the document will automatically be distributed to people that have to accept it. One of the people in my environment that have to accept that policy document is Peter. Peter is not part of the quality department, so he doesn't necessarily have access to all policy documents, but he does have access to this specific document that I've just completed. So I can write him a note, and he can confirm that he's read it, and we can add additional options that he doesn't agree with the policy because maybe he's seen a problem in it or something that he did not expect. So we can start even a complete separate workflow where there can be a communication around the specific policy document. But of course, there's been multiple tasks created in DocuWare to multiple people to approve this. And we can even create an HR file within DocuWare, not only with policy documents, with other HR documents as well, where this policy document can now be sitting in Peter's HR file, ready for audit trail and ready for review. So quite simple, Peter will confirm the task. It will be completed and updated. Finally, if I go back to my administrator or my document checker in this environment, and I just do a blind search, or I search for a specific document number or who's checked the document or whatever the case may be. In my case, I'm just going to click on the blind search. I know it will be on top. There is my document that I have just confirmed. I can also go into the history of this document to do a full verification of what has happened to it. When has it been broadcasted? When has it been validated? I can also go into a document history to see exactly who has opened the document and who has worked on the document in my environment. So ready for ISO processes, every single action on the document recorded. I can still see that there is a previous Word version, which is not visible to all users, which is my original template, ready and waiting for me should I need to do any revisions to this document. In the demonstration, which obviously doesn't include all of the options that you potentially want to do in your QMS environment, this is just an example. I have also built in a quick review option. So for example, if Elizabeth wants to go look for a specific quality document, she'll open the search criteria, and she would say that I'm looking for a document within a specific category, for example, and one that has a specific language. She can even go based on the status of the document or based on any text that you find on the page in the full text search. In my case, I'm going to say I'm looking for document title QMS. So it's this latest one that I've done, QMS document 1 search. It will bring back, because she's also a moderator, she has access to the Word version, but she wants to now run a review on this QMS document. All she needs to do is simply click on Send for Review, apply a digital stamp to the page, which never affects the original, but it's recorded in the audit trail that Elizabeth wants to make a change to this policy document, and that would then re-kick off a workflow for us to review that specific policy document and then give me a revision workflow that I can now upload. Just a quick overview of how DocuWare can help us to manage policy documents. You can see in the flow of the workflow that we can really automate any workflow in any document, which means that we can notify people on a daily basis if there's certain tasks that they need to complete or do specific checklists. And examples of this was construction companies where they get a notification to check a site for certain requirements on a daily basis, or for car companies to give them a checklist of what they need to check on the motor vehicles. And the use cases, of course, is incredibly broad. At this point, I'm now going to jump back. Of course, you might have a million questions. Once again, please feel free to use them. And at the end of the webinar, we will give you some information about how to reach out if you want to go into a little bit more detail. I'm now going to hand over to Bob just to briefly discuss with us what are some of the benefits that you can expect and how did we solve those problems that we spoke about in the beginning, and potentially what could my return be if I start automating this process a little bit more within my organization. Bob, over to you.
Thanks, David. So as you saw with the demo, we've created a document, moved it through the entire process to it being live for everyone in the business to use. That policy is now in place. The solution itself has allowed you to reduce the errors, to save time with the interaction that people have to create that document. Each person is notified, they are kept well informed of exactly what's happening to the document, and it makes it very easy for everybody to have that collaboration. The cost savings, because you are simply reducing the time and effort in regards to creating these documents to ensure that everybody has the right access to the right policies at the right times. It means that the control of the documents is streamlined. You have, as David showed, the audit trail for everything that has happened with that policy, whether it be through the workflow or the actual edits and changes to the documents themselves. This is going to absolutely mitigate risk because everything is automated. What would that mean in value and ROI to you? Well, the company is becoming more efficient. Those policies and procedures are in place far quicker and easier for people to use and manage. The compliance, even to the point of, let's face it, if you fail on a compliance area, whether it be ISO, whether it be regulatory, there potentially are fines that you are now not going to be hit with. It also allows far better decision making because of a clear defined process and a clear defined movement of a document through the organization to creation. You are allowing the business to massively increase profits and improve the whole decision-making process in what you are doing. So what does that mean to you? What's the ROI? Well, as we've said, you've got far better document control. The compliance oversight is massively reduced. It's a far simpler way of being able to view and see exactly what's going on with those documents, which means any sort of audit you have is reduced in time as well as effort. And again, automating all of those processes can really proactively mitigate risk.
Thank you, Bob. I think the benefits are clear. And of course, you will have lots of questions. There's a lot of systems available on the market that specifically addresses policy concerns, right? DocuWare is an holistic ECM approach, which means that we can configure that for any type of process or requirement that you might have. So if there's any one of those specific questions, please feel free to reach out. Before I'm going to open it up for questions, going to open up my last slide just so that you can capture some information should you want to reach out to myself and Bob. There's also a QR code on the bottom of the screen. If you want to scan that with your phone, then you can have my contact details directly, and please feel free to reach out directly. Of course, this is no obligation. This is purely if you want to have additional information about what is possible within DocuWare. Also, we welcome feedback, and we strive to continually improve our webinars. So if any feedback that you have, we will reach out afterwards. And if you want to share with us, how did we do? Did we give you relevant information, and did you find it beneficial? Please feel free to reach out. I'll leave the screen up should you want to capture some of our contact details, and I'll address some of the questions that we've got. I've received one directly, which is, can we manage our assets related to the policy documents within DocuWare? The answer is yes, we can. I've shown you a list within DocuWare, and this is where we can give you up-to-date reporting, and we can run automated retentions on that as well. So if there's any updates and notifications that needs to be done, that can also be managed in DocuWare. From a reporting perspective, DocuWare captures each and every single action, which means this can easily be exported to any type of BI tool. We also work with partners in all areas in the world that gives us the ability to offer that to our customers as an add-on function, but it can also be imported into your current Microsoft BI environment, or even exported to Excel so that you can run your own pivots and reports on that data. And I'm talking every single action. When did somebody log in? When did they access the document? And of course, when did they approve it and accept and read receipted it? That was the only question I had. We've got Nick sitting in the background. We never told you, and he's monitoring the questions for us. Nick, did we have any specific questions that you can see?
No further questions at this point, no.
Okay, awesome. Guys, thank you very much for joining today. I hope you found it